Sandy Says Read, and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to do a review and discussion of The First 4 Years by Laura Ingalls Wilder. Let me try to get some of the glare off of it for you so you can see the front cover of this book. Very nice. Yes. This book is for the Clock Reading Challenge. I picked this out because of the number 4 in the title. You guys, there's a lot happening here. I picked out this book off the shelf because I was doing the unread books tag here on the channel, which I think began over at Renee's channel, Beyond Books. I think she originated the unread books tag. So I pulled this down off the shelf thinking, oh, an unread book, and it has a 4 in the title, so I can use it for the Clock Reading Challenge. Okay, here's why all that is totally wrong. Because I've read this book before. Yeah, when I was a kid. So it doesn't really fit unread, but I wanted to reread it because it has a 4 in the title, and I wanted to use the 4 for my Clock Reading Challenge. But you guys, I also think I already read a book this year with a 4 in the title. Yeah, so everything about this was just convoluted and crazy. Yeah, mayhem and chaos. If you guys enjoy that kind of mayhem and chaos, I invite you to subscribe to the channel because that happens here all the time. And it's usually about books. Shall we do the specs? Because we're going to go ahead and do this. I reread it because, you know, of course I did. The specs are The First 4 Years by Laura Ingalls Wilder. It was probably written in the 1940s. We'll talk about that in a second. The text copyright is 1971. This edition was published by Harper Trophy in 1972. This particular version is 134 pages. It's in third-person point of view, past tense. Of course it is. Let me read the back cover for you. Laura and Almanzo Wilder have just been married. Okay, I'm aware that his name is pronounced Almanzo. Laura pronounced it Almanzo. That's how it's supposed to be. But I grew up watching the TV series where Eliza Jane introduced him as Almanzo, and so everyone calls him. I can't say Almanzo. I can't do it. So we're going to go with the TV series pronunciation, you guys. Laura and Almanzo Wilder have just been married, and their life on a small prairie homestead begins with high hopes. But each year brings unexpected disasters, storms, sickness, fire, and unpaid debts. Their pioneer lives have trained them well, however, and they are determined to succeed and to provide for the newest member of the family, baby Rose. Okay, so the belief that this was written in the 1940s. Let's look at that. In the introduction, this fellow, hold on, guys, Roger Lee McBride. He wrote the introduction for this, and he states in here, Laura wrote the first drafts of her previous books in the same way. Okay, she bought like these little like penny notebooks that she wrote in. My own guess is that she wrote this one in the late 1940s, and that after Almanzo died, she lost interest in revising and completing it for publication. Because she didn't do so, there is a difference from the earliest books in the way the story is told. Okay, so 1940s is when we think she wrote these 4 chapters, these 4 portions of the first 4 years of their lives together. Shall we begin? Shall we talk about this? Okay, I'm going to go through this. I've portioned it out to talk about each of the chapters. Okay? Okay. I'm not giving you a Sandy synopsis. We're just going to go through the book. The Sandy synopsis is, I love this. Yeah. I love all the Laura Ingalls Wilder's books because you just learn so much. Okay, the prologue. We start with a prologue, and it's only like 2 pages, okay? And it's sort of it's just a view of their courtship, okay? It's a reminder of their courtship. The prologue is. It's just very short, sweet. Then we go to the first year. The first year is the first like chapter. It goes from pages 1 through 60, and it is. The first 10 pages of it are a quick summary of the end of these happy golden years, the last book of the series that Laura wrote, the series of her childhood that she wrote. And what's interesting, and I wrote this down here, we don't get Ma telling her that the adage, married in black, you'll wish yourself back. Because when Laura got married to Almanzo, they did kind of hurry that along. They didn't want They didn't want the family out east coming in and making a big, huge deal of it and turning it into some expensive thing that, Pa couldn't afford to pay for, that Laura and Almanzo couldn't afford to pay for. They didn't want it to become some big, huge thing that they had no control over. So they wanted to hurry up and get the wedding to happen and be done. So Laura wore a dress that she was making at the time. She was making just a serviceable black cashmere dress that she could have as a married woman to wear to events like funerals, church, wherever, right? She needed a black dress. So she was going to wear that for her wedding. And Ma told her, in these happy golden years, Ma told her, hey, married in black, you'll wish yourself back. She wished that Laura would wear something else. But Laura's like, this is serviceable. It's new. It's pretty. It will do. So she wore that. She's just a very like stoic woman, right? Laura was like, this will work. Let's do it. Let's go. And there's a book called Out of the Mouth of Ma. So I should have brought that up here. It's on that lower shelf over there. I've got a bunch of my like pioneer books over there on that lower shelf. Anyway, there's a lot of Ma-isms, right? That I apply in my life today that I learned from the Little House books. And that's one of them. And that one it's not in this book. And you can tell that Laura wrote this differently. It's not been edited into the series like the Little House books were edited into a series, because Laura just put it together, right? She just wrote it down and then didn't go back to it. And you can tell that because some of those extra bits and pieces are missing. Some of that stuff is missing. That adage from Ma is missing. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that I noticed when I was reading it a long time ago, and just recently when I reread it just now, I realized those little bits and pieces aren't there. Does that make sense? Am I just rambling? I'm just rambling. Okay. Yeah. Like was it on the banks of Plum Creek? In one of the books, when they have the grasshopper, the locust, like plague that comes through, when all the locusts come through, the locusts are eating all the crops, and Pa loses his crops, right? I mean, they lose just about everything. The locusts eat every green thing, but the chickens are eating the locusts. And Ma tells the girls, oh, we're not going to have to buy chicken feed. And she tells them, there's no great loss without some small gain. And you guys, that phrase, I use that phrase to this day. I'm 55 now. I still use that phrase that I learned from Ma when I was a tween, reading that book. Yeah. Anyway, enough rambling. Let us go back to talking about the first year. We're still on the first 10 pages. Okay, next. Okay, during the first year, pages 1 through 60, at the end of their first year, you guys, they have a hailstorm that just destroys everything. You guys, it's horrifying. Laura and Almanzo decide they're going to try farming. They're going to give this a try. Laura tells him, hey, I don't know if I want to marry a farmer. Like at the beginning of this, she tells him, I'm not sure that I want to marry a farmer. I've seen how hard it's been for my pa. I don't know if I want that for my life. Do we really want to do this? And Almanzo's like, hey, give me 3 years. Let's give this a shot for 3 years. And if at the end of 3 years, we haven't made a go of it, we'll try something else. So she's like, okay, 3 years, let's do it. Well, the first year, it's hard. I mean, this first year, we're going to talk about it a little bit more, but throughout that first year, it's just hard. I mean, one thing after another is just difficult to get through. And she is pregnant at the end of this first year. They know she's pregnant. Boy, it's just difficult. And they're trying to grow trees on one portion of their land, because if they can prove up those trees, that they've got those trees, that orchard going, then Manly can make some money from the government. The government will give him money for that. They've got a homestead over here that's just some property homestead that they've got over here sitting by. They've got their house that's mortgaged. They've got a house that's on this land, and this land is where they're growing this crop of wheat. And it's almost time for the wheat to be harvested. And so Manly goes into town. He buys this harvester that he's going to use to harvest the crop. This thing is not cheap. And Laura's a little worried about that. But he said, don't worry. We've got enough money in this harvest right here. We're going to get $3,000 from this. $3,000. It was a huge amount of money. And Laura's like, wow, okay. Good, let's do it. Well, he goes and he harvests like a row of the crop, and okay, that row it's good, but the next row he's going to do, he's like, it's not quite ready. It's still a little bit green. It probably needs another 3 days. Well, in that 3 days time, they're waiting, and a storm comes. The storm comes up, the sky turns green, and it hails. Guys, there's a hailstorm that is just horrific. The hailstorm lasts for 20 minutes, and in that 20 minutes, they lose everything. In 20 minutes, it is all wiped out. It destroys the wheat that's standing in the field. All of it, mush, 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 down, gone. Gone. The trees, the trees, this 10 acres of trees, gone. All the little leaves that were on them are just stripped away, stripped bare. The tiny branches, stripped bare. These trees, dead. All of it. All of it, gone. At the end of the first year, they're back to nothing. Except now they have more debts because they just bought this harvester to harvest. Oh, you guys. Awful. In 20 minutes, everything was gone. Okay, so they decide how they can manage, how they can make some money to like survive on, because they've got to buy groceries, they've got to buy fuel to get through the winter, right? Okay, they've got to survive. They decide how they can do this is they will, if they put up a little house on the homestead, if they're living on the homestead, they can take out a mortgage on it. If they're not living on the homestead, they can't take out a mortgage on it. So they've got to live on the homestead. So they rent the house that they've been living in to someone, and they put up a little shanty on the homestead. So they're lower than they were when they got married, basically, is what's happened. It's like, oh man, sucks. But they do this. They put up a little shanty on the homestead, and they take out a mortgage of like $800. You guys, it's a lot of money. A lot of money. That's the end of the first year. It's just harsh. Okay, so the second year begins on August 25th, 1886. And this goes from pages 61 to 83. Okay, so by December of this second year, Laura goes into labor and little Rose is born. And this, I mean, that's a bright spark. Okay, they have a baby and that's wonderful. But you have to have a doctor come and there's expense for that, but they have little Rose. Okay. And then by April, we think that we can plant seeds for crops. Everyone thinks this. Everyone in the township, everyone around there thinks that we can plant because it's April. It's time. Something happens, you guys. I wanted to share this on page 76. This is the year now is 1887 because it's April. And on the 12th of April, Manly went down to the barn to hitch up for the afternoon's work. When he went into the barn, the sun was shining warmly, and he had no thought of storm. But when the horses were combed and brushed and harnessed, just as he was starting to take them out, there was a crash, as of something smashing against the whole side of the barn. Then he heard the shriek of the wind, and looking out, could see nothing but whirling snow. A blizzard in April? Why, it was time for spring's work. Manly could hardly believe his eyes. He rubbed them and looked again. Then he unharnessed the team and went to the house. It was quite a little way to go, and nothing whatever could be seen except the whirling snow. But there were things scattered along the path, the cutter, the wagon, the bobsled. Taking his direction from the way each stood as he came to it, he went on to the next and came safely to the porch and the house. So in April of 1887, they had this alarming, like whiteout blizzard there. And I wanted to point that out because these blizzards were happening back in the prairie days. These blizzards that were devastating. We'll talk about them a little bit more too, but I just wanted to point out that that had happened. Then also during the second year, because they're on the homestead, they didn't have a crop to lose this time. Maybe that's a blessing, but they did have hay. There was hay to bring in, and they had 2 steers to sell. So at the end of the second year, they were able to put up enough hay to feed the horses and the other, livestock. They had enough hay to do that, and they had some hay that they could sell. So they were able to sell some, and they had 2 steers that they could sell. So they were able to bring in enough money to pay the notes on some of the mortgages, the interest, pay the interest on some of the mortgages, and to buy groceries so they could survive. All right. The end of the second year. The third year. The third year began August 25th, 1887, and this one goes from pages 84 to 97. You will notice that one is shorter than the others. The third year is much shorter. In the third year, a significant thing that happened is Manly bought a hard coal heater stove for their house. They moved back into the main house. Laura, during this year, Laura came down with diphtheria. Ma Ingalls took Rose home so that Rose wouldn't catch it. Manly came down with it too because he was tending to her. Then his brother Royal, who lived nearby, he was a bachelor, he lived nearby, he came out to help care for them. Although Manly's case of diphtheria was lighter than Laura's, after they got better, Manly got back to work too quickly. He was working too hard too quickly, and he had a stroke. He had a light stroke, and he was partially paralyzed because of that. Yeah, let's go to pages 89 and 90 to discuss that. I mean, he overcame some of the effects of that stroke, though. He was not an invalid because of it, but he did have, he had a situation where Laura would assist him in like getting his boot buckles buckled. It would help him in getting the horses harnessed. She would do that kind of like small buckling work to help him because he didn't have those motor skills for quite some time. And let's see, on page 90, he was gradually overcoming the effect of the stroke, but still would fall down if he happened to stub his toe. He could not step over a piece of board in his way, but must go around it. His fingers were clumsy, so that they could neither hitch up nor unhitch his team, but he could drive them once they were ready to go. So Laura hitched up the horses and helped him get started, and then was on hand ready to help him unhitch when he drove them back. The renter had taken the tree claim with the fall plowing done, so he turned it back to Manly plowed, and that's nice. Okay, so yeah, there was help going on. Laura's cousin Peter lived in the area, and he worked for a gentleman who had a lot of sheep that he wanted to sell off. So Peter proposed that he and Laura purchase 100 head of sheep. Laura had a colt that was growing up and doing well, so they sold the colt so that she would have enough money. So she and Peter went in on purchasing the sheep, brought the sheep over. They built up the barn so that the sheep had a place to go at night, and Peter would take them out and they would graze during the day. Peter basically was the shepherd for that. And Peter moved into the house with Laura and Alonzo. He had a cot in one of the rooms so that he could help out and tend the sheep. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Then this year. So at the end of the third year, the crop has been planted, but at the end of the third year, a wind started to blow. Yeah. A hot wind started to blow, and it basically burned up the crop. Over 3 days, a hot wind just annihilated the crop. So this year they didn't have a crop because of this hot, dry wind that just burned up the crop, destroyed it. Yeah, so that's the end of the third year. Okay, then we have the fourth year is a year of grace. It began on August 25th, 1888, and this goes from pages 98 to 134. Laura acquiesces, and she acquiesces to a fourth year, basically, because you recall, she told Manly she didn't necessarily want to marry a farmer, and he said, let's give it 3 years. And after 3 years, if we haven't made it, then we'll try something else. But she acquiesces to this year. Let's go to page 99. Hold please while I get there. 99. Let's see. Manly said he would have to get another team, for he wanted to break the 60 acres of sod and have the whole 160 acres ready to seed in the spring. But the 3 years are up. Do you call this farming a success? Laura objected. Well, I don't know, Manly answered. It is not so bad. Of course, the crops have been mostly failures, but we have 4 cows now and some calves. We have the 4 horses and the colts and the machinery, and there are the sheep. If we could only get one crop, just one good crop, it would be all right. Let's try it 1 more year. Next year, maybe a good crop year, and we're all fixed for farming now, with no money to start anything else. Okay, this sounds reasonable, so they give it a try. They're going to go 1 more. So we have In this fourth year, this year of grace, we do have wolves. Wolves go past the property. One evening when Peter and Manly are out taking care of stuff, Laura is at home alone with Rose, and she hears wolves howling. And she's like, wait a minute, are they coming after my sheep? So she goes out to the barn and she gets a pitchfork. She's going to ward them off with this pitchfork. Now, luckily, the wolves do go like around the property. They go north of the property. They go around the property. So they don't come to the sheep, which is good. But she's ready. She's going to take care of it if she has to. So I liked that. Let's see. In December of 1888, she realizes she's pregnant again. She's going to have another baby. And like during December, around while she's pregnant, a neighbor brings her a sack full of novels, these Waverly novels. So she has books that she can read when she's at home alone. When it's snowing, she has books she can read, and she enjoyed those. Let's see, what else do we have during this year? We have a dust storm with high winds and a prairie fire to fight. After the high winds blow all the seed away, this is in the spring. After the high winds blow all the seed away, Manly has to go and buy more seed to reseed the fields. This is wheat and what else? Wheat and oats. Yeah, wheat and oat fields. So that summer, hot winds come again. All right. And this doesn't destroy the crops this time, but it does take out the trees. Those little trees that they're trying to get to grow, it's the end of the trees, basically. So those 10 acres of trees that they're trying to grow so they can prove that up to the government, it's just not going to happen. They have to admit defeat on that. So they're not going to get money from the government for those 10 acres of trees. And I think, if I remember right, the tree farm land goes back to the government. It's just a loss. It's just a loss. Someone else is going to try instead. Then a tornado blows by the house. There's one afternoon when Manly is back. He's in town doing some stuff in town. Laura's at home alone with Rose, and hey, a funnel cloud is going to drop. Oh my goodness. So she gets into the cellar with Rose. Thank goodness it doesn't actually hit the house. So that's a blessing. August 5th, their baby boy is born. But about a month later, he has spasms and he dies before the doctor even gets there. They lose their baby boy. So that was a shame. Then a few days after the death of their child, haying has begun. It's time for the hay to be brought in. So Manly is out in the field doing the hay. He's doing that. Peter, Manly, and neighbors come around to help one another on the different farms to bring in crops, to bring in hay, to do this kind of thing. So that's taking place. Laura is making the dinner. She sets the fire in this new stove that Manly had brought in. She sets the fire, puts the tea kettle on, goes into another part of the house. When she comes back into the kitchen, the entire kitchen is on fire. The entire kitchen is ablaze. And she can't, she realizes that running out to the well and bringing in a pail of water isn't putting this out. So she grabs Rose, she grabs the deed box from the bedroom wherever the deed box is kept, and goes out into the yard and just sits down and cries. Her house goes up in flames. Manly comes back. I mean, obviously people in the field see the smoke. They come back and they can't put it out. One of the neighbors runs into the kitchen, throws some dishes out the window, and there's silverware out the window. And that's all that can be said. He ended up getting some burns. Yeah. He's okay. He was all right. But all that's left for them after that fire is some silverware and their baby, the deed box. That's it. And that was near the end of the fourth year. So the baby boy was born August 5th. We don't get the actual date of that in the book. Okay, so the baby born was August 5th. He passed away about a month after that. So we're around September 5th, right? When this fire has happened, the haying is going on, and they lose everything. So the end of the fourth year, it's all gone. Yeah, Mr. Sheldon is the neighbor who had given Laura some books while she was pregnant with the little baby boy. He has a homestead nearby, and he needed someone to do some homesteading things there. So he did give them. He gave them basically a job. Like, here's, you can have room and board. You can stay here if you help me keep stuff up here, like housekeeping stuff. So that helped them like survive for a while. Yeah. You guys. So on this back cover where it says, their pioneering lives have trained them well. However, yeah. Each year brings unexpected disasters. You guys, it was a tough life. It was difficult. I mean, being a farmer was tough. Living on the prairie was tough. But just disasters, just so much they had to deal with. It was hard. I wrote here, the first year was heartbreaking. Yeah, the first year was heartbreaking and scary. Let's just keep looking at the disasters. On page 36, we have the blizzards that came up during the first year of their marriage. There was during the winter, the first blizzard that hit, just it came out of nowhere, and people were surprised by it. Manly was surprised by it and nearly got lost out on the prairie. Laura was in the house alone when the wind struck the northwest corner with such force the whole house jarred. Quickly, she ran to the window, but she could see only a wall of whiteness beyond the glass. Manly was in the barn, and at the sudden shriek of the storm, he too looked out a window. Then, although it was only mid-afternoon, he fed the horses and cows for the night, milked the heifer in the little pail in which he had taken out some salt, and shutting the barn door carefully and tightly behind him, started for the house. As soon as he was away from the shelter of the hay at the barn door, the full force of the storm struck him. It seemed to come from every direction at once. Whichever way he turned his head, he faced the wind. He knew the direction in which the house lay, but he could see nothing of it. He could see nothing but a blur of white. It had grown intensely cold, and the snow was a powdered dust of ice that filled his eyes and ears, and since he must breathe, he felt smothered. After taking a few steps, he could not see the barn. He was alone in a whirling white world. Keeping his face in the right direction, Manly went ahead, but soon he knew he had gone far enough to be at the house, yet he could not see it. A few steps more, and he stumbled against an old wagon that had been left some little distance south of the house. In spite of his guarding against it, the wind had blown him south of his way, and now he knew where he was. So again, setting his face in the right direction, he went on. Again, he knew he should have reached the house, but he had not. If he should become hopelessly confused, he might not find it at all, but wander out on the open prairie to perish, or he might even freeze within a few feet of the house before the storm was over. No shout of his could be heard above the wind. Well, he might as well go on a little farther. No use standing still. Another step, and his shoulder just lightly brushed something. He put up his hand and touched the corner of a building. The house! He had almost missed it and headed out into the storm. So he was at the back of the house. He made his way inside. But that is what people out on the prairie dealt with when a storm caught them unaware. People died in that storm. There were other storms that came up that winter, and people died in those storms. People buried their way into haystacks that they happened to stumble upon. And some people, if they were clothed in heavy enough, jackets and coats, made it. There was a pair of travelers that had come in from Illinois. They didn't have heavy enough coats on. They burrowed their way into a haystack and froze to death. You guys, it was a hard time living on the prairie. It was a hard time. But for all the hard times and all the difficulties, Laura and Almanzo, they were in love. You guys, they were in love, and they stuck it out, and they stuck together. Almanzo died at age 94. Is that what we learned in the intro? Hang on, let me tell you. Hold, please. I'll get there and tell you. After Almanzo died, he died in the 40s. I think he was 94. Hold on. Here we go. Here we go. Almanzo's ending in 1949 at age 92. And Laura's in 1957 at age 90. So they lived the rest of their lives together to age 92 and 90. Yeah, okay, so 92. Almanza was 92. You guys, they lived together the rest of their lives because they were in love. And on page 27, this is at the very beginning of their marriage, okay? Very beginning, page 27. They have a couple of ponies that are taking them out on their drives. Remember during their courtship, if you've read the Little House series, during their courtship, they would go on these long drives together, just out, and Laura would sing while they were out together, and they would just hang out together on these long drives. Trixie and what was the other horse's name? Fly and Trixie. Those are their ponies. After that, it was proven many times that Trixie was faster, often on a 20-mile ride over the open prairie before breakfast. It was a carefree, happy time, for two people thoroughly in sympathy can do pretty much as they like. Isn't that sweet? These two, they had to go through so much crap, so many trials, so many difficulties, so much hardship. When you see one of the pictures that Garth Williams drew there, that's the fire that happened in that 4th year. Man, you guys, they really had hard times, but they stuck it out because they stuck together. They had each other. Yeah. You guys, thumbs up for sticking together. Thumbs up for the true love of Laura and Almanzo. And thumbs up for Laura Ingalls Wilder writing this stuff down so that we could have these stories. You guys, I grew up on these stories. I grew up on this TV series too. Yeah. Obviously, the TV series took a lot of liberties being based on the Little House books, but obviously not mirroring them. Yeah, thumbs up for a really good series. I highly recommend the Little House on the Prairie books for any kid. I don't care if they seem outdated to us now. I don't care. Those stories are packed full of wisdom. They're packed full of stories. They're packed full of messages. They're packed full of faith. They're packed full of stick-to-itiveness. I mean, the crap these two went through, and yet they were still together. There are books after this one. Thank you so much for tuning in.